Hi, good evening. This is Jim Gerson from CareStack. You're in the right place for our webinar on our CE course, I should say, on how to accelerate practice growth and scalability, hosted by Tim and Lauren Johnson. We're gonna get started here because I don't want to penalize, the great turnout that we have so far here tonight. So again, you're gonna learn about how to accelerate practice growth and scalability. The program would not be complimentary tonight without the support of our two sponsors. And I first want to thank Jeff Daly for his collaboration. Jeff, I think we're over 2 years now of collaborating on these CE courses. And it would not be possible without the generous support of Darby Dental for allowing us to make this happen. And I'm gonna have Tim and Laura, you guys are gonna introduce yourselves to the audience if that's okay. But take it away if you wanna go back to your deck. And while Tim and Lauren are introducing themselves, I'm gonna put up our first poll because I think it's really important for both of them to understand who's our audience comprised of tonight. The voting is anonymous, but again, it's super helpful and we'll have a couple polls to keep you engaged. So Tim and Lauren, the floor is yours. Please fire away.
Awesome. Jeff, Jim, hey, honestly, it's thank you so much for having us. It truly is our pleasure to get to be here and to share with your group just a little bit about Bizrock. For those of you that don't know us or haven't heard about us, so we created and we're the co-founders of Bizrock. So we are a dental consulting and training organization. All right. Really at the heart, we're more a training organization. Our mission is to provide every practice out there the ability to better train their teams. Okay. Just real quick before we get into the content, we'll tell you a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about what we do. As far as services, we do executive coaching. Really, that's really heavy on the business and on the financial side. We do in-office team trainings. Then we have a program where our practice send their key members. Those are typically your office managers, ops managers, director of operations, and they actually come and we teach them our training content and we teach them how to go back and train your own team. So it allows you guys to actually own your own training at that point. And then the other thing that we've learned just from working with hundreds of different practices at this point is that, and it goes back to what both Jim and Jeff were talking about, is there's a need for operational support out there, all right, in every practice. And that's really where our last service kind of goes is we provide operational support, implementing processes, implementing best practices, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But as far as for me, so my name's Tim Johnson. Again, this is my wife, Lauren Johnson, and we're co-founders of Bizrock. So I've been doing business and financial consulting, that's kind of my background. I've been in the dental space now for about 5 years. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't in it to begin with. I got drug in it by my wife, all right? However, it's been an amazing 5 years and I've actually come to love it, and it's just about all we work with now at this point. So, you guys truly are a special group of individuals that care, and that's what makes it so fun to work with you, because you truly do care about your patients. And our goal is to care just as much about you guys and just help you guys enhance some of the things that you're already doing. So.
Yeah, so I'll give you a 30-second about my background. So I'm a true dental nerd. I've been in the dental industry my entire career. So fresh out of high school, started my college journey. I started in a dental office. I've done every job in the dental office, everything from front office, operations, leading, recruiting, hiring, training, even dental assisting. Although I always joke with my doctors, I'm like, please just don't ask me to help with like a temp. Like that, those days are gone. I've already passed that. But I love this passion, this passionate industry. So hopefully you'll see our passion come alive today. Most of all, I love helping our teams. And whenever I was in the dental office, I started training new team members coming on board, and I just fell in love with it. And a gentleman that I worked with at the time, he and I started getting recruited to go all over the country. People are like, what are you doing to your dental practice? You guys are growing so quickly. And so we started going into practices and putting in operational systems, putting in training in place. And I was actually training practices. So at this point, I've worked with hundreds, if not over 1,000 dental practices all over the country. But what I love what we do is because Tim works so closely with the dental owner on the business side and the financial side, we're able to come together because I work so closely with the key team members, the key leaders in the practice. And so it's just a really special, unique industry. And we're excited to be here with you guys tonight. But I do always tell our teams, practices, dentists, whoever we work with, guys, we're here for you. I know Jim is filling out some questions and polls during this conversation, but what I would encourage you to do is, if you're on with us today, take notes. They say on average, if you sit back and you're passive and you just kind of listen to a couple of things that we say and you're like, hey guys, like this content's great, but I'm not a note taker, I'm not one of those, then as much as it saddens me at the end of our conversation, you might retain about 10% of what we say. So we want to leave you just a little better than when you arrived. And so I'm going to encourage you to take notes, because if you take notes and you're actively engaged, studies show that you'll remember more than 90% of what we say. So we've got some great content for you. So I hope you're here. I hope you're engaged, and I hope you enjoy what we have to share.
Lauren, thank you for the introduction and the foreshadowing on the poll. So we have our first poll complete. And just to give you an idea, hygiene is in the house. Like Jeff, they just typically always represents. About half of our audience is hygienists, and then about 30% are dentists. And then the rest are broken up between dental assisting and insurance coordination, just to give you an idea.
Beautiful. Love it. Awesome. I think you have to give back controls, Jim.
You guys should have control of the deck. If you just go ahead and hit your clicker or the
Okay.
forward arrow button, you should be fine.
It's not clicking.
Yeah, we don't have control at the moment.
I don't have control of I don't have your deck. So if you're in the bottom left, there you go.
Got it.
All right.
Beautiful.
All right, so we'll go ahead and jump in. So tonight, guys, what we were going to share is we've kind of created this from all of the different practices that we work with. So what we want to talk about is really 3 areas of focus that we work with every practice on. All right, and this is what our goal is look, oftentimes the dental practices that we work with, they're already successful. And what we do is we come in and we help them enhance a little bit. So the things that we're going to talk to you tonight about, all right, so they're on the screen. They're going to be really, how do we cultivate exceptional experiences? All right. The second thing is going to be establishing operational excellence in your practice and what that really means. For some of you might be saying, I don't even know what operational excellence is. So we'll get into that a little bit later. And then the third thing that we do to enhance the practices that we work with is really grow and develop their team, which allows them to retain and attract top talent. All right.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So the first bullet point, please jot this down, is cultivating exceptional experiences to increase or drive practice revenues. And to me, whenever I think about that, the natural question is, well, what does it truly mean to be exceptional? Whenever you guys say exceptional, what does that mean? I think if we, I love the different backgrounds, and we're all in different positions within the dental practice, but no matter where you are, what position you hold, or where your dental practice is located, competition's here. So no matter where you are, you could be in the rural banks of South Carolina, and there is competition popping up everywhere you go. And so what that tells me is our patients have options. And so when I think about being exceptional, I want to take the competition like out of my patient's mind. I want to be unique. I want my patients to say, whenever they get that $39 special cleaning exam and x-ray postcard in the mail, I want them to like toss that aside and say, you know what? My practice is exceptional. And I know that this other practice popped up down the street, but it doesn't matter, because whenever I go to, Bizrock Family Dental, whatever you call it, whenever I go to this dental practice, they are unique. They take care of me. They welcome me. They greet me by name. I'm not just a number in the practice. I'm truly a patient, and they hear me. You want to create memorable or shareable moments for your patients. And how do you do that? Well, there's something that we teach called the patient experience cycle. And basically what it does is it breaks down your patient's journey in your practice. Looking at your journey with your patients and what your patients go through, it's not just enough that they're welcomed and they're greeted with a smile. It's not just enough that their time with the clinician is wonderful. Every single part of the process of the patient's journey has to be top-notch. It has to be memorable and shareable. And you want to make sure that you have higher standards than anybody else. So we love sharing stories and personal experiences. So we're in Atlanta. We're local Atlantans. And in Atlanta, there are two major hospitals. So we have a 2-year-old. And so a couple of years ago, when we were looking at hospitals and where to deliver, the big debate in our family was Wellstar or Northside Hospital. Tim has his whole family, I swear, is in the medical industry. And so they were all pro Wellstar, but I kept seeing all these Northside commercial hospital commercials. And I was like, okay, Northside's doing something right. Like, let's just go tour it. Let's take a tour there. Let's see how the experience goes. And I will be honest, they blew me away. So they had such an amazing patient experience. The tour was great. We were given a gift. And so the experience didn't disappoint. When we walked into the hospital, getting ready to deliver our little boy, everybody was top notch. How we were greeted, how we were treated. When people walked into our room, they knew our names. Guys, they didn't actually know our names. They looked at our chart. They had a process where they were like, I need to know the wife and the husband. I need to know both their names. I need to know their son's name. What are they delivering? They knew everything about us. And so, great experience. We did their survey when we left. And then I kind of forgot about it. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks later, when we were home with our son, I got a thank you card in the mail. Now, I know some of you are exceptional practices already, and you do thank you cards for your patients, and that's fantastic. But let me tell you about this thank you card. Every single person that we interacted with, every doctor, every nurse, every assistant, every single person that we interacted with, they signed that card. And, God, over the last couple of years, we've told everybody that we know, you got to go to Northside. If you have a need, you got to go to Northside. And we're what we would call raving fans. And so when we think about what does it mean to be exceptional, I don't want you to just be an average practice. I want your patients to feel exceptional. I want your patients to walk out of your practice every single time they see you, and they're raving fans for your community. And how do you do that? You do what your competition's not willing to do. That's how you can kind of just create that exceptional experience and really be unique and memorable from your competition.
So here's the other thing, guys, with that and why it's important to truly focus on experience. All right. So I come from the business world. I've been studying business, I feel like my whole life at this point. And when you go back down to it, and it's interesting because we have these conversations with the practices that we work with, and you ask them, okay, tell us the top organizations that come to mind when you think of exceptional experiences. And it's always the top three. It's like 95% of the time, it's Disney, it's Chick-fil-A, and it's the Ritz-Carlton. And I go, well, that's interesting because they're all in different industries, but they do, when you go back and think about it, they all embody truly serving their customer or their client or their patient, right? And it's all about the experience. That's where they focus on. It's experience, and it's actually training, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But so when you look at business, I go, okay, well, if we want to have a successful business for a minute, all right, let's just talk business for a second. So if we want to have a successful business, we have to go back and go, okay, there's really two ways to create it. You take it first mover advantage, right? And you do something innovative and you come up with the next Airbnb or something, right? Or, all right, that's one path that you take. Or the other path that most businesses end up taking is you model. All right. So we're big fans of modeling and modeling success. And that's why we talk about experience. And it goes, okay, well, Chick-fil-A is doing it. And when we ask the teams that we work with, we go, okay, well, what sets Chick-fil-A apart? And they talk about it and they say, well, my pleasure. And I go, wait a minute, hold on. So what you're telling me is that you just said two words, my pleasure. So literally you can change the experience that you deliver by the way that we communicate to our patients. Well, guys, it's true. You absolutely can. Now, here's the really interesting thing, though. How many times have you told a patient, my pleasure, in your dental practice? Do you guys ever do that? If you don't, I would highly encourage you to start. Here's what I tell all the practices that we work with. It'd be an awful compliment to be known as literally the Chick-fil-A dental practice of our area, right? I'd hate to be known as that. So, guys, at the end of the day, look, your patients deserve it. They do. They deserve that type of experience. They deserve to be treated like that, right? The other thing that's really important is when you have an exceptional experience, Your patients, they'll travel further, they'll wait longer, they'll pay more. Go back to Disney, look at them. All right, so Six Flags has, I don't know how many theme parks in the US. I feel like there's one in every state or every other state or something at this point. Disney, though, who will blow them away, has only 2 locations, Florida and California. That's all you got. So literally people travel further. And here's the interesting thing. You talk about the third bullet point there. You talk about paying more. Disney, it costs more to go to Disney than to get like a season pass for a Six Flags. So you could go one time, you pay to go one time and it costs more. Why? Because they focus on the experience, because the experience is that much better. We say this to say, look, guys, experience has got to be important in your practice as well. We've got to put a focus on it. Okay.
Yeah. And so whenever we have conversations with our doctors and they're like, what does it take to be a fee for service practice? Like I'm tired of being, stuck to the insurance plans. How do I get rid of insurance plans? Well, you start with experience. You look at every single part of the patient experience cycle, their journey in your practice, and you say, well, do we really go above and beyond? Do we truly serve our patients? Do we roll out the red carpet for them? I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago with one of our doctors who does very, very large restorative cases. Like his average case is between $20,000 and $40,000. And I was like, okay, what can we do to just blow your patients away? And so when a patient finishes up their treatment, the patient has no idea. So they leave the practice and they've got this beautiful new smile and they've gone through their treatment. And a couple of days later, a very large, beautiful bouquet of 3 dozen roses with a thank you card from the practice shows up at their house. Like, that's a statement. I mean, that's something that carries with that patient, even after they walked out and had their new beautiful smile. That patient's still raving about the practice just because they got flowers sent to their house. It was different and it was exceptional. So you guys can do that just by doing a couple small tweaks to your patient experience and say, okay, what can we do to just stand out? Let me put this up here. You want to become exceptional? Well, go above and beyond. Make your patients feel special. Deliver more than what is expected of you. There's a hotel out in LA called the Magic Castle Resort, which if you looked at it, if you Googled it, which I would encourage you to do after our time together, if you Google it, you'll see that it's this awful canary yellow, like 1950s or 1960s style hotel, but you'll see all these glowing reviews. I mean, they've got thousands of reviews. And, if you looked at their hotel rooms, it's nothing special. But what makes them special, what makes them unique is that they do something, just one thing, one special thing for their guests. Outside at their pool, they have what's called the popsicle hotline. And so any guest in the hotel, which you can imagine, children especially love this, they go and they pick up this phone and somebody, a friendly staff member answers, says, popsicle hotline, what can I do for you? And, your son or daughter can order any color popsicle they want. And somebody walks out with white glove service on a silver platter and hands the guest a popsicle, and they have free snacks. And it's just this cool, unique experience, but yet they outbook the Four Seasons Hotel that's in the same town as them. So
it's like the Jeff Daly household. He delivers popsicles all the time to his kids.
There you go. See, now you got to do it white glove.
Lauren, can you put the name of that hotel in the chat feature if that's okay for people?
Yeah.
You get a chance.
Absolutely. I'll do that.
Great example though. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. And so, whenever we talk about being exceptional, and especially some of my entrepreneurs on here, if your minds are spinning and you're like, gosh, I need to step up my game. Like, let's create exceptional experiences all across our practice. Well, what I'm going to tell you is it just takes one. Just pick one thing and make it exceptional. Do one thing that is more than what's expected for your patients, and it'll make them feel special and want to come back.
And so ultimately, why are we talking about experience and all? Guys, experience is what drives referrals, all right? So we're going to talk for just a little bit about kind of the power of referrals and what it means for your dental practice, but also what's holding us back from it, okay? You guys may or may not be doing it right now, but if you're not asking for referrals, I wouldn't be shocked, to be completely honest. Only about 20 to 30% of businesses actually have a referral process in place, all right? Now, let's talk about why that's actually the case. Because the individuals that have to ask for referrals, They don't like rejection. All right. At the end of the day, nobody likes rejection. And they don't want to ask for a referral and get rejected. Now, I go, okay, well, that's understandable, but what if we enhance our experience? All right. So if I ask a patient about a referral and I don't get it, well, then yeah, I'm rejected. I don't like it. But what if we increased our experience? Because look, when you go to a great meal, you go to the Magic Castle Hotel, you know, whenever you go to Disney, you come and you tell everybody about it. You literally do. We're still telling people about Northside. You know, one of the things that we talk about to enhance your experience is give a patient tour. Northside was doing patient tours of their hospital before we were even a patient there. They're spending time and resources to do that. And we weren't even a patient at that point in time. But so we talk about all these things, and Lauren mentioned it earlier about kind of the patient experience cycle. And we map out the whole cycle a patient goes through of an appointment in your practice. And in each area, we look at different ways to enhance the experience in there. It's really powerful, but it's all built to make you guys more referable. All right. So if you're not writing at the moment, all right, I need you guys to write this down. I'm gonna give you a couple statistics, okay, of why referrals are so powerful. All right. Referrals are typically, they are 4 times more likely to accept treatment in your practice. All right. And that's not just dental, that's in all businesses. Referrals are typically 4 times more likely to buy. All right.
Hey, Tim, do you mind if I post your poll? Is this an okay time to do that on the referral process?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
The second one that I'm going to share with you guys is your 83% of consumers, they're willing to actually give a referral after a positive experience. Now, again, there's a couple things that goes into that. One, we have to have a process in place to where we actually ask. All right. That's the first thing. The second thing, though, is if you listen to the last 2 words of that, it said after a positive experience. All right. Now, I also know that in the dental practice, what happens when an appointment doesn't go well, or you're like, hey, that didn't go well, and you're on your comms, you're letting the front know, or when you go and hand them off, you kind of walk around the other side of the counter and you're like, hey, don't ask for a review or a referral on this one. This patient didn't have a great appointment, right? So it is a positive experience, but 83% of individuals are willing to give that review and that referral after a positive experience. The problem goes back down to it that only about 20 or 30% of the businesses actually have that process in place to make sure that we're asking for them. Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm seeing a few of the poll answers come up. The one that I kind of want to highlight is the not currently, but we have in the past. So typically, whenever we start working with a practice, about half will say, yes, I've done it before, it didn't work. And what I will tell you is, like, marketing is one of the trickiest things when it comes to owning and running a business, but studies show that at a minimum, it takes 90 days for a marketing campaign to start. But it's not until the compound effect of you continuing to market and you continuing to ask patients for referrals and tweaking your process and your experience that patients will finally start asking their friends and family to come to you. And then one thing too, I'm really, really big on language in the dental practice. We did an entire workshop just on communication and language recently. And typically whenever I ask a team, when I'm like, okay, so do you ask your patients for referrals? And they're like, yeah, Lauren, we do. I'm like, great, what does it sound like? And it's this very passive conversation with a patient. And so what we'll do is we'll say, hey, Tim, how was your experience with Dr. Johnson?
Great.
Awesome. Hey, so you're going to get a survey later. If you get a chance, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any friends and family in your life that needs a dental office, we'd love to serve them. And so it's this passive exchange instead of actually getting a commitment from your patient. And a commitment is actually pausing and asking a question and waiting for your patient to say yes and commit that they'll do something for you. So if you were listening to some of my language, I'll tweak it and give you the proper verbiage. And so, I have Tim and he's coming to check out, and I'm like, hey, Tim, how was your experience with Dr. Johnson today?
It was great.
Awesome. Well, we love hearing that. I'm sure you've seen some of our referral contests that we have going on in the practice right now. One of the greatest gifts that you could ever give our practice is referring a friend or a family member. If you have anyone in your life that needs a new dental office, would you send them our way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Now, I want you guys to see the difference there. I waited for my patient to actually give me a commitment. I didn't passively skip on to the next thing. And see, typically we do just roll right by because we're so afraid we're going to get a no from our patient. But if you have your experience, if you have all of your best practices, which we'll jump into, in place, then you don't have to worry about getting a no from your patient. You know they're always going to have an amazing experience.
Hey, Tim and Lauren, do you mind if I report on this poll real quick so you get a sense of your...
Absolutely.
Sorry about that. We'd love to have a higher turnout at the polls, guys. Like 60% of you are, let's go. Let's get that to the 90s. So the question was, do you already have a referral process in place? 38% yes, we rotate a referral process quarterly. 40% no, not currently, but I have in the past. And then about 17% no, we've never done a referral process. And then a smaller, about 6% saying help, I need guidance for implementing.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing.
Of course. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So, all right. So the third statistic for you guys that I'm gonna share with you, you guys should, hopefully we're still writing these down, all right? So a formalized referral program produces 86% more revenue growth over a 2-year period. Guys, if any of you guys care about your statistics, you care about your production and all, 86% additional growth over a 2-year period. That's huge. Now, here's the thing. Everybody in every position can gain referrals in a practice. It doesn't matter if you're the doctor that owns it. It doesn't matter if you're an associate, a hygienist, if you're at the front desk. Anybody can be the reason that we're gaining referrals in our practice.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and jump into part 2, establish operational excellence to dominate your competition. So for some of you, you saw the word operational excellence and you're like, all right, guys, so what does that actually mean? So we like to break operational excellence really into 3 categories. So I want you to jot these down. It's processes, people, and performance. And it does go in that order, and we'll talk about why. So processes, people, and performance. So typically what we see in a dental practice is you've got, we'll say Susie. So Susie front office, who's been in the practice for 20 or 30 years, and Susie knows how to do everything. And if Susie won the lottery tomorrow and left our practice, then, she holds all the keys to the castle, and it would not be good for us. And the problem with that is, well, just what I said, if Susie won the lottery tomorrow and left, then what do we do? How do we retrain for Susie's position? And so typically what happens in a dental practice is we look at our current team and we design processes around them. So we customize processes for all of our key team members. And the problem with that is as you grow and you need to add additional team members, you're not clear on the type of people that you need to hire. And so we flip that script and we say, okay, we're going to actually look at our processes. What are the best ways to do different things? What is the best experience and the best process for answering the phone, for checking a patient in? What's the best handoff conversation? What's the best way to present treatment? What's the best way to go over financial options with our patients? And so we go through all of those and say, what's the best blank? And then we plug in people. And if people aren't performing in that, then we train them. We say, okay, who in our practice checks patients in the best? Who has the greatest greeting? And how can we use that key team member to train the rest of our fellow teams? And then you plug in performance, which we'll get into here shortly, but that's where the metrics comes in. But you have to start with those processes because of exactly what you see up on your screen. It's the framework for improving your practice. The greatest businesses in the world, they understand processes. You've got to create a process because that's what actually runs your business. And then you plug in people because processes run a business and people run those processes.
All right, guys. So let's talk really quick why it's important. All right. It goes back to exactly what Lauren was saying. Unfortunately, what happens, and it seems that it's happening more often at this point in time, is we're having some team members, leave our practices or maybe even move out of dental and medical completely at this point, right? So as a practice, then one of the things that we need to do is we need to be proactive and not reactive and say, okay, hey, we've got to be efficient. All right. We've got to have these best practices in place. All right. So we focus on best practices. I will tell you, I'm not a fan of SOPs. I don't like standard operating procedures. If you just look at it, the very first word, it's standard. Look, I think standards are like kind of, hey, that's the minimum threshold, just so that we don't get in trouble with somebody, or, just to barely, suffice the, what we're supposed to be doing. So what we want to do is best practices, but then we have to cross train. We've got to make sure that everybody is doing best practice. All right. So I'll go back to one of my examples earlier. Let's go back to Chick-fil-A. How do you guys feel? Because every once in a while, like once in a blue moon, it happens. You go to Chick-fil-A and you get that team member that tells you, "You're welcome." And you're like, "Oh, well, wait a minute, what? I'm sorry, did you misspeak?" Right?
They must be new.
But no, you go to every location across the country, and it's a best practice for them. They've trained on it, literally every single team member. It doesn't matter where you're at in the country, what team member you are, where you're at in their organization or anything. It's always my pleasure, because again, it's a best practice for them. So it increases efficiencies. Okay. The other things is, for those of you that are leaders, you guys know how much time is wasted during your day answering the same question, or telling somebody the same process, or saying the same process to multiple different team members or multiple different people throughout a day or a week. It happens all the time.
I was gonna say, office managers especially run into this. We have those conversations with our office managers or ops leaders, and they'll say, "Gosh, it's just easier for me to do it, guys, because I've told my team the same thing over and over again, and they're still not doing it. So I just handle it." And I'm like, "Do you like vacation? Like, what happens when you go on vacation for a week?" And they're like, "I stress out. I'm available if anybody needs me. And then I come back and then I clean up all of the messes from whenever I was gone for a week." And it's like, no, like leadership is not about doing. Leadership is about teaching and training your team to be you, so you can continue to lead the office, so you can make things happen and truly just run the operational side, not be in the weeds.
All right, guys, and that third point up there, to establish performance benchmarks. Look, for me, I don't believe that we can establish any benchmarks for our teams or goals until we're truly performing where we should be. If we're not performing at our best, well, then how do I start to provide benchmarks yet? So I want to implement best practices so that I get everybody performing at their best. Then we want to start to look at our benchmarks.
Awesome. And then how do you establish operational excellence? Well, you start by providing a consistent experience. In your practice, every patient should have the exact same experience, no matter which hygienist or doctor they see. Even, how your check-in process is, everything should be the same. And it's not to make it a practice run like a bunch of robots. It's so that you can create a consistent experience for your patients. It's just like what Tim talked about earlier. Your patients deserve it. People don't like change. And so one of the hardest things for a patient to change is their either hygienist or their doctor. But if everyone is doing things the best way to best serve our patients, then it doesn't matter if you call in sick one day. I know there's a lot of hygienists on here. I know some of you love your patients so much, and you're like, I just want to serve my patients. I just want to take care of them. Well, if you're out sick for a day, do all of your patients fall off, or is there somebody else that can serve them because they can do what you do? They know how to follow your best practices. And so that's why we want to have operational excellence in place, is so that that patient is always taken care of no matter who they see. And then we put up here, establish KPIs and team expectations. So I love this bullet point, because typically what happens is when we start working with practices, and I get the team members kind of one-on-one, they're like, "Lauren, I just want to know if I'm on the right track. Like, my doctor's never told me, am I doing a good job? Am I performing? Am I hitting whatever goal or arbitrary goal he threw out there? I don't even know what our goals are. And, I don't know how to ask for a raise because I don't know if I'm performing or not." So your team wants that. They want to know if they're on track. They want to know if they're performing or not. And I'll tell you, the third bullet point that we'll get into about top talent, your top talent team members, your rock stars in the practice, they want to know what their metric is because they're go-getters. They've got their next personal financial goal in place. They've got their next hygiene goal in place. And so they want to know if they're on track to hit those goals because they're go-getters. The people in the practice that fight numbers and say, well, I don't like numbers, that's too corporate, we don't focus on numbers. Well, I push back and say, well, does that mean that you don't like to be held accountable? Because, as a practice grows, your doctor has the opportunity to invest in you, but that raise has to come from somewhere. It has to come from the growth of the practice. And if we're all working towards the same goal, if we're all performing, if we all have KPIs in place, then your doctor can say like, hey, high five team, like we're all performing together. We're all hitting our metrics. We're all being held accountable, but we're able to win in this thing together. And your doctor can't do that if there's not metrics, if there's not accountability in place. And then finally, you got to train. So we'll kind of jump into that in this third bullet point. But you have to focus on training your team. You can't just throw bodies at problems. You want to make sure that your team is qualified and able to do the job. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, Lauren, we've got the third and final poll here to kind of set up your discussion. You mind if I launch that?
Sure.
Please.
Okay, let's have better turnout, participants. Come on, it's anonymous. Jeff Daly's not putting this on your permanent record. Please let us know what's most appropriate. It will help us kind of guide at the last 10 or 12 minutes of our program today. Thank you. All right, so please continue and I'll report back in about a minute or so.
Okay, awesome. Very good.
All right, so bringing us to kind of the third area we're going to talk to you guys about tonight, which is really growing and developing your team so that you guys can retain and attract talent. All right. So what does it really mean? Guys, here's the interesting thing when we talk about this is one of the number one reasons that any team member leaves an organization right now is for a lack of growth and development opportunities. All right. And unfortunately, here's what happens if we don't provide training in a dental practice. All right. I want you guys to think about this for a second, because this happens in all organizations. So if we don't provide training in an organization, if we don't provide the ability to grow and to develop, then we stay stagnant. All right. And here's what we get. So we get pushback sometimes from team members that are in practices, or they push back on a doctor that wants to do some training with the practice. And they're like, my team doesn't want it. What that's telling me is that their team doesn't want to grow. They don't want to change. They don't want to grow at this point in time. So here's the unfortunate thing that happens. And I need you guys to hear this. If you have team members that don't want to train and don't want to grow, they're going to hold the organization back. Now it goes back to what we talked about earlier about, hey, team members, your rock stars, the ones that want to go above and beyond, that want to grow, that want to help you grow your organization, they want it. And what happens if they don't get it? They leave.
That's right. Yeah.
So ultimately, if we don't train or we don't provide the opportunity to grow and develop our team, we're stuck with a group of individuals sometimes that hold us back, all right, and keep us stagnant. And our rock stars that could help us get where we're trying to get, they actually leave to go somewhere, all right? We've had this example happen specifically where we had a practice that was trying to get an associate, and we were working with them, and we complied and gave everything that they wanted. But ultimately, they ended up not taking the position, and we found out down the road because the owning doctor is an absolute producer. I mean, he kills it. He stays busy. But what they learned or what they heard or thought that was going to happen was that they weren't going to get the amount of mentoring that they wanted because that doctor was so busy. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. He got everything he asked for, everything that he wanted, they were going to give him. But he wasn't going to get the mentorship, so he went to another practice. Now, I would ask, how many team members have we maybe lost in the past because they maybe found out that we aren't offering that growth and that development opportunity for them?
Well put, Tim. Here are the responses to your poll. So the question was, does your practice focus on training? 26% say clinical training only. 45% say clinical and patient experience training. 15% no time for training, and 15% have in the past but open to learning.
I'm going to comment on one of them because we hear it all the time. We don't have time to train. Look, the schedule's so full, right? There's just no time available for it. What I'm telling you guys is your organization will perform better. You will be more efficient during those times if you'll actually take just a little bit of time here and there to actually put some training on the calendar and do it. You'll perform better those hours that you actually are doing production. But we hear that all the time.
Thanks, guys. So what does the top talent practice look like? So we mentioned it before, having raving team members. Guys, you spend a lot of time with each other. You might as well have an amazing environment where you love to come to work, and doctors where your team wants to be there. You know, we started this presentation talking about patient experience and creating an exceptional experience for them. But what about the team? You know, there's so many training organizations out there that just focus on patients. Well, I'm going to flip that, because if you take care of your team will take better care of your patients. So, you know, for some of the team members that we've worked with, they spend more time in the dental practice than they do their own family. And so you want to make sure that we have raving team members. You want to say, do we have a culture where our team loves to come to work every day? Do we have a culture where our team is begging other people to come and work for this organization because we're so fun? You know, we do fun things. We go places. You know, we train, we work hard, but yeah, we play hard too. You know, we're big college football fans. I won't say who we root for, but we are big college football fans. And, you know, one of the most fun things that I've seen some of our practices do is the practices that are open on Fridays, they wear their favorite like college game day shirt. Like, why not? It creates fun in your environment. And so, you know, it's funny. We even had a practice not too long ago. Their culture was really rough whenever they came to us. And I was like, well, do you feed your team? And they're like, the doctor was like, well, yeah, I mean, when we do like CE, you know, I bring lunch in, you know, I cater like the sandwich shop down the street. And I'm like, okay, that's not the kind of lunch I'm talking about. I'm talking about snacks. I'm literally talking about like giant Costco boxes of snacks and drinks that you have on hand 24/7 for your team. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, trust me, go buy snacks for your team and let me know how their attitude is. And within a week, the doctor called and was like, I spent like $100 on snacks for the office and my team is like thrilled. And I was like, I know. I said, that's part of culture. Like, have fun, treat your team, take care of your team. They'll take better care of your patients if they love where they work. And the second one we have up here is have a positive attitude. You know, top talent, they are growth oriented. They have a positive attitude. They're willing to jump in, you know, they're humble, they're hungry, but they have a positive attitude. They have this can-do attitude of saying, hey, I want to learn, I want to grow. And the top talent practice has high performers. And those high performers, they have a desire to grow and develop. You know, I can always tell whenever our rockstar team members are, because they're like, what else can I read? Like, give me a book, Lauren, give me a book and I'll learn. You know, they're not saying, well, do I get paid to read this book on the weekends? No, like, be an exceptional team member. And, you know, I know there's a lot of team members on here, and I'll tell you, like, first of all, if you're on this evening, you're already top notch. You know, you wouldn't be here on a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday evening if you weren't already exceptional. But if you really want to take your game to the next level and you want to make more and have more in life than you could ever imagine, then go grow, go and develop, you know, have the best attitude, you know, go to your doctor and say, what else can I do for you? Your doctors, I mean, my God, we get to see some really wonderful things when we sit down with our doctors, but they will invest in you if you just ask. But what happens to these poor doctors is they get demanded of, and they say, doc, I've been with you for 3 years now, I'm ready for a raise. Why don't you go to the doctor and say, hey, am I performing? You know, what metrics are you measuring me against? What can I do to better serve this practice? And I'm telling you, if you do that, you won't have to ask for a raise. Your doctors will serve you and they will take care of you. And if not, somebody will scoop you up and they will take care of you.
Guys, speaking of that last bullet point, if you guys haven't heard it before, one of the best investments you can make is an investment in yourself. All right. That could be podcasts, it could be audio books, it could be courses like this, whatever the case is. Continue to invest in yourself, continue to learn and grow. Mm-hmm. All right. So
Tim and Lauren, real quick, we're getting some questions, which is awesome. And I want to encourage people, we've got probably about another four minutes or so, then we're going to entertain some questions. So please keep them coming. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So why is it important, guys? At the end of the day, why is this important? Look, we talked about a little bit earlier that turnover is expensive. It is. I think Jeff, he threw an option out there that, I'll be honest, I haven't heard about that yet, Jeff, but I'm gonna look into it because I know practices that we're working with are needing team members right now. So I'll be looking into that afterwards.
Jim, you gotta be careful with Jeff though, because he doesn't give snacks to his team. Barely water breaks. So, Jeff, take note of this program.
I'm gonna send you a Costco box.
That's all right. Hey, we're gonna work on him. All right, we're gonna work on him.
Please.
So. But no, guys, turnover is expensive. It's not just turnover is expensive because look, hiring right now to hire headhunters and things like that is expensive right now. But turnover is also expensive for a business. Hey, look, your patients, they do want to see the same great team member over and over, right? So it's, guys, we got to do that. We got to be our high performers. They help us achieve our goals, all right? And then top talent can create exponential growth for us. It really can. There's something that I recommend for people when they're looking at hiring, all right? And if you were to go out and look at applicants and you put them in, and we're not even going to talk about, we're going to talk about a scale of 1 to 10, okay? So we're not going to talk about 1 through 7, all right? Because we're not looking to hire 1 through 7s. All right, so eights, here's what eights get you in your practice or in your business. Eights do what you tell them. All right, nines, they develop and execute strategies for you. All right, your tens, they actually sense the problem, design the solution, and then implement it for you. They're your absolute go-getters. So the question is, are we just hiring the next body to come into our organization, or are we actually out there looking for those 8, 9s, and 10s? All right, I'm telling you guys, if you want short-term results, okay, then hey, maybe go hire the first body you can get. But if you want long-term results and performance in your business, we got to focus on this, all right?
Yeah, and so we touched on it briefly, but guys, create an exceptional culture. Docs on here, if you're listening, office managers, if you're like, okay, how do I create an exceptional culture? Go ask your team and be honest with them and say, okay, guys, take pay out. We're not talking about that today, but what would make this a fun and thriving culture? Like, what would you guys want? And you'd be surprised what your team will actually say to make it a fun environment. It might be as simple as food. Usually it is food. If you feed them, they will come back, right? But just ask them what they want. Like, what would make this the best place to work? Whether it's food, it's gifts. Some of our practices will set up a culture club where the team can spend X dollars every single month to buy fun things for the practice. One of our practices, before any team meeting, they do a minute to win it game of goofy stuff, and they just crack up and they post it all over social media, and their patients love it, but they have fun. What would make your environment fun? Ask your team, but take care of your team, because that's who's taking care of your patients every day. And then provide growth and development opportunities. And last but not least, docs, if you're on here, if you're still listening, I want you to kind of circle this third one, and I want you to write this down. It's give recognition and reward routinely. If you have team members who are due for a raise, give them a raise. Like, take care of your team. If somebody goes above and beyond, if they say, if they take exceptional care of a patient, or they stay late and nobody asked them to, they just did it because it was the right thing to do. If they work through a lunch break, give them recognition. But team, I'm also going to tell you, you need to give recognition to your doctor. When your doctors do something great for you, brag on them, because they want to know that they're on the right track for you as well. So how do you attract and retain? You take care of your team and you create an exceptional experience. So last couple wrap-ups.
Go ahead.
So 3 takeaways. So cultivate exceptional experiences for your patient and your team. Establish operational excellence through people, processes, and performance. And then invest in training and grow and develop your team. That's how you create growth. That's how you dominate your competition. You create an amazing experience. You put processes in place that are scalable, and then you continuously train and serve your team.
Well put.
So,
all right.
Awesome. Last couple things, and then Jim, will give the floor over to you. So
yeah, we have a couple of questions I want to make sure to ask you that came through the audience. So yeah, go for it, please.
Fantastic. So we can't do this for everybody, obviously. But the first 5 of you, if you're like, Lauren, I'd love to see like what's my experience like in my practice. The easiest place for us to judge your patient experience is over the phone. You can hear a smile over the phone. You can hear a tone over the phone. So it's one of the easiest ways for us to do that. So if you'd be interested in that, the top 5, the first 5 who text call report, please include your first and last name, but text call report to the number listed on the screen. We will get a call report. We'll call your office anonymously. I don't want to embarrass your team. This will go straight to you.
That's not the point of it, guys. It's to help you guys enhance. That's not the point.
But also in this call report, we're solution focused. It's not just a, hey, dude, like, here's all the problems with the phone call. We'll actually give you solutions on how to fix it. So, whether we cross paths again, it doesn't matter, but we are solution focused. So we'll give you those solutions right in your call report. We'll send you the recording, but that's something that you can focus on, creating an exceptional experience for your patients.
Thank you. You've got your contact information there too as well. So the first question we have from the audience is specific to this individual is starting out on their own. They're starting a new practice. And their question is like, if you had, 1 or 2 elements to really reinforce for someone starting from the ground up, what would those be? What would you kind of emphasize for them in their situation?
I would go back to exactly what we're talking about. All right. So 1, if you've ever heard of the lean startup, I would stay with the lean startup. All right. That's one of the biggest issues that businesses have is they get out and they invest too much. All right. And they don't do enough to actually produce income. All right. The biggest thing right now is production. All right. So, and I will tell you for me, and look, everybody's got a different, kind of a different rule of thumb on this, but I see a lot of practices coming out and they're like, I want to be fee for service. I want to be fee for service. Guys, my personal opinion for that is that's an earned right, okay? You got to go out there and you got to earn it, all right? What I believe is the best way to do it is to go out and build up the capacity in your practice, get to where we've maxed out capacity of all of our ops. Then we can start looking at moving to a fee for service and start to increase fees and adjust things. But so I would look at that and then experience, I would say. But
for me, especially for a new doctor, whether you're buying a practice or you're starting a de novo, it doesn't matter. If you're a brand new owner, what I would do is call your patients. One of the greatest things that you could do, guys, especially doctors on here, you're already a celebrity. I know you don't feel like that, but you're the natural authority in your practice. And so calling your patients, whether it's after a large restorative case just happened or before you ever meet them. So if you've got a new patient on your schedule and you've never met them, maybe they've been coming to the practice for 10 plus years, but they're new to you, call them. Welcome them. Just say, hey, this is Dr. Johnson. I see that you're coming into the practice in a couple of days. I've never met you. I'm so excited to see you in the office. I just want to make sure that you have everything you need before you come in. And, it's twofold, right? So whenever you do that phone call, I'm telling you, your no-shows will go down, but your patients will remember that because they're not exactly getting calls every other day from their own medical physician, welcoming them to a practice. So it's an easy way for you to create an exceptional experience from day one.
I would add real quick, I'd add to it. The other thing is the experience. The best way you can grow that practice right away is going to be through referral. So the experience has got to be top notch. You're going to have time to deliver a top notch experience. And then we got to ask for referrals. All right. That's going to beat out marketing dollars in the beginning because look, marketing, it takes capital that gets expensive. Sometimes we don't have that when we first start. So experience is going to be huge.
And then you have to bridge the credibility gap, right, with marketing because people are coming to you and don't know you, right? The referral is so powerful because that credibility gap has been bridged. I think we have a couple of people have raised their hands, and guys, I'm not intelligent enough to figure out how to unmute your line and let you ask questions. So if you have questions, Lauren, do you mind throwing up your email address in the chat feature if people want to reach out to you after this program?
Yeah.
One more question, if that's okay, Tim and Lauren, does that work for you guys?
Sure.
So this is from our audience member. Do I need to change every part of our practice experience to make it exceptional?
No, please don't. Just pick one. No, that was a really great question. What I would encourage you to do is just pick one thing. Tim mentioned the patient tours. Last I checked, giving a patient a tour of your practice is free. It doesn't cost anything, and it shouldn't be this like 5-minute long patient tour. Everyone thinks, oh gosh, Lauren, our time frame and the scheduling, and I don't have time. When I say patient tour, I mean a 30-second walking, talking resume of your practice and what makes you unique. Create a patient experience and increase that by doing a patient tour. This is just one thing. So I would always say, just pick one thing, master it, and then layer, add something else.
I'm going to add something really quick to that. All right. So
Sure.
Typically speaking, all right, people don't like change. All right. So if you're in your practice, whoever asked that question, what I would ask is, if you go back to your team, tell them, hey, this is what we're going to do to enhance it. All right. It's just I know it's a small tweak in that verbiage there, but if you tell them, hey, you tell the team we're going to change it, they start to get upset. They start worrying about, just people don't like change. So what can we do to enhance it?
Mm-hmm.
Well put. So many actionable tips here and insights. Thank you both so much. But thank you, Tim and Lauren. I want to really people have your contact information in front. I've shared Lauren's email in the chat feature if you have more questions and you want to engage with them post-meeting here. So thank you, everybody. We finished on time. I, again, want to thank Tim and Lauren for a wonderful program this evening or afternoon. If you want to learn about what's coming up with CareStack, our CE courses, we ask that you follow us in the CareStack Champions Facebook group. That's a way to get kind of dialed in on what's going on, or follow both Darby and CareStack on LinkedIn. And that's where we typically promote our courses. And thanks so much for taking your time with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Have a great evening, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.